with Origin because he is also a graphic artist. He's a muralist, he's many things, and I had to look up the term artivist. And I thought, artivist, what is that? So I looked it up and went to Mother Google. It's a combination of artist and activist. So he's somebody who uses his art to fight justice and oppression and to bring about a change in society. So I was very impressed by that. So, and also Arijit, he, as Rico said, the first graphic novel in India was brought out by him, River of Stories. Unfortunately, he hasn't brought it with him. But Arijit, can you tell us, before we move on to Guru Girls and Youth Without a Plan, can you tell us something about the graphic novel and how, you managed to bring it out yourself?
Thanks Rico for the introductions, and thank you Mario for putting me on the spot. I think my generation, we were born in the 60s, and especially in my case, my father was a government servant, and he used to get transferred from place to place. So usually he would be stationed in a small town because he was a surveyor, so he had to go and do his survey work in remote places. So we had absolutely no access. Even in big towns we didn't at that time, but in a small town we had no access to any kind of visual storytelling mediums. So for us, comics was the only thing that we really, really looked to and wanted to read more of, and so on and so forth. The only problem is that our teachers and parents even then looked down on comics as some kind of a lowbrow, childish kind of thing. Now when I think of what internet is for children, comics was positively educated. Anyway, so at that time it was looked down upon, but we were insistent on having comics, so we would get like small bits of pocket money to be able to buy comics or whatever, the very simple, cheap, easily available comics. But since each of us would have like a small amount, we developed a pretty sophisticated barter system where we would buy different comics and then we would keep on trading and bartering. Each of us had our collections. And somewhere along this process, because I used to love to draw, I naturally started to try to draw my own stories. And without much success, because obviously, I didn't have any knowledge about it, or nobody was there to tell me, okay, you probably need to write a script first and then work on the image. I just start off like the way I read a book, comic. So I first do the cover without knowing what the content is going to be. Then I do the first page, and then obviously I don't go very far because I'm confused, like, what happens next? So, but I tried several times, and little by little I would learn. And at one point, so our exchange of comics was going on, and one day I thought, why not see if I do like a 5-page comic, can I get a Phantom comic from my friend in exchange for that? And to my great surprise, my friend was willing to barter his Phantom, precious printed Phantom comic for my 5 handmade drawn comics, so it suddenly gave me a big boost that I said, oh, I should make more comics. I can get all this, and the only purpose was not to make good comics, but to get actually the good comics which I wanted to read. And I remember that as a starting point when I started to make my own comics in small ways, in between other things. But then when I was in college, I came across what is often called, in the 60s in the US, meanwhile, of course, the whole comics thing was growing in various countries like Japan, the US, France, which had a kind of developed comics culture, and there were obviously it was not seen in those countries as just children's lowbrow things. The people would do, artists and writers were creating serious works in the medium. And I came across that when I went to college. I went to design college, and the library had really good stuff. And at that time, that was in the mid 80s, like 83, 84. Art Spiegelman, this American author, he created a book about his father's experiences of the Holocaust. I mean, he's Jewish, and that became a bestseller in the US, and Spiegelman got a Pulitzer Prize for it. And that's when I think the idea that comics can deal with very serious and difficult and complex subjects became much more popular. And of course, in our school library, in my design school library, we used to get Time magazine and all that. And Art Spiegelman and his book was the cover story on one particular issue of Time magazine. And suddenly all these years of people telling me your obsession with comics is childish, it's bad, we don't waste your time. Even in design school they used to tell me that. Like, I used to try to make comics everywhere. So they would say like, stop wasting your time doing that or whatever. So then I felt very vindicated when I saw that Time magazine cover story. And I went to my teachers and I said, see, this is what I'm talking about. You guys are behind your time. You don't know what comics are all about. And of course, the term graphic novel kind of became also popular at that time. At that point, so I was still in design school, I became certain that I'm going to be making my own book like Art Spiegelman. And I started, but I knew from my childhood experience that unless you have a very good kind of a story that you get committed to and a story that you want to tell, which is important for you, you'll never finish it. I mean, that was obvious to me by then. And so I was like from then on I was looking for that story which is going to make me want to really tell it. And because comics making is a long and lonely process. I mean, you sit by yourself most of the time. And even if you are in a partnership with the writer, essentially, my sympathies here lie with Fabian because because I know how much work goes into it, and how long it takes, and how much, in a way, like I'm saying, it's a lonely path. Nobody else can tell you anything. You have to do it by yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot, thanks a lot, Arijit, for sharing that. We'll move on to the creators, okay? And I'll start with you, Derek, because you're the writer. So I guess the story idea was yours and all that. Another reason why I want to start with you and not Fabian, because I'm jealous of Fabian. See, I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to be an artist myself. And then I got 8 out of 100 in drawing. So I had to revise. And it's so serious. So I had to revise, and become a writer instead. So Derek, I want to ask you, this idea for this graphic novel, how did it come about? Did it grow slowly? Did it just hit you like a thunderbolt? Tell us about the beginning and the process, and then of course how you found this partner who seems to kind of, the collaboration, at least for me, is really, I would say, perfect. So we'd like to know something about that.
No, there was no thunderbolt or sudden inspiration. See, after I retired from the Goan every day, I somehow thought I should write a book. And I didn't want to do a lot of writing. So I thought this graphic novel would be very nice. I'll just write conversation, little description, and let the artist do the rest. So that was how I thought about a graphic novel. But like Arijit, I grew up in Belgaum with a lot of comics, and especially that Mad magazine. That's an inspiration, yeah. And then of course there was Asterix and Obelix and all that. So I called up, he and I had worked together in the Gomantak Times, and I thought he was a very good artist. because he could draw very fast and very good, very well. You know. So I contacted him, and he was quite excited about the whole thing because we worked together, and there was a column I used to write which he liked. So we had this meeting in Mall the Goa, yes, because there's one stall that serves very good black tea, and it's a little sweet, but it's okay. Yeah. So we sat there and I explained to him, and I didn't really have a story in mind. I had a few ideas maybe linked to the story. And then I told him about it. You know, I want to write about this topic, about this whole Gaurakshaks and all that. And he was very excited about it. He said, yeah, let's do it and all that. And we had this meeting, and he went home probably thinking that no problem, Derek knows what he's doing. And I went home thinking, I hope this guy knows what he's getting into, you know. And there was no black or white, there was a hell of a lot of grey area. And we were both not sure how this thing would shape up, because I didn't exactly plan this is going to be the beginning, this is what's going to happen to the character, and he would go. I think I started somewhere in the middle of the book. I tend to work with scenes and then stitch those scenes together. So I work out a good scene, then I have to start working everything from scene 3 to scene 7. And then I have to think of 5, and I have to think of 6, just to make scene 7 relevant to the whole book. Okay. So halfway through the book I said, okay, this needs a beginning now. So, because there was no beginning, there was no start. So I went, and then I started thinking about all this. Okay, it needs a flashback, because otherwise it's just a little bit too linear, so okay, throw in one flashback. And that's how I stitched it together. That is why when I first met both Annie and Arijit, said it's very episodic. That's because of this way I was thinking. Now I realize it's just not the way to write a book. Yeah, there are better ways to do it. This is one of the worst. But so that was my process. And I said, I'll write it. I just had to write a script. This fellow said this fellow said that, little description. I'll pass it to him and let him do what he wants. So I passed it to him, and then he would send back some drawings and sketches, and this was going on, like, you know, page 1, page 2. You know, we were both lost at sea, actually. He didn't know anything about graphic novels, and neither did I, but we were moving along. Here, there, 5 pages went, 10 pages came. And then after about the 11th or 12th page, the drawings changed. They became very neat, and they became very clean, very organized, and something had changed. So I called up Fabian. I said, Fabian, are you outsourcing this work? I could say that to him because I know him very well. I wouldn't have said that to anyone else. He said, no, I'm doing it all by myself. I said, okay, then we got to go back and do those first 10 pages now to match these pages. Yeah. I said, but we'll do that later on. And that's how we went forward. But it was still not okay. It was getting stuck here and there, because not because of the way he was sketching, but because of the way I was writing. I can write conversations and it can go on, but how to fit them into panels is a big headache. So one day I went to this library, this bookstore in again Mall the Goa, and I was looking at one of these comics. And to my good luck, this comic was divided into 2 parts. The first part had the comic book with all the panels and all. The second part had the script. Yeah, it had a script, and that's when I saw that the script is planned according to panels. You have to visualize that panel, write what you want to go in that panel, and then go to the next. So by page 25 we started that and went back and forth, and that's how we finally
Fabian asked you, are you outsourcing your writing now?
so Fabian, you better answer that. Whether I'm outsourcing the writing.
First of all, thank you all for coming. This book has been like, it's been like I've done my MFA 3 times. It took us 6 years to complete. But it was quite an experience working at Derek. Before, when I was working at Gomandak Times, I was used to his style of writing, and I was used to visualizing the way he wrote and to coming up with stuff. Even Aarti over here was part of the group over there, so I used to illustrate even for her articles. So it was a habit which I had formed, but then I was on the lookout for a good writer wherein I could come up with a comic for a very long time. So I think since college days, my ex-professor is over here, Savili. He knows how much I was into comics. I used to infuse comics into all of my ads, into all of my stuff, and I got most of my encouragement and my resistance from that place, especially Savili. Thank you, Savili. So like Arijit sir said also, it's kind of a lonely path, not that kind of a lonely path. You like being alone because you have to be just into the script and you have to come up with something over there. And there were times when I used to read the script and I used to not be able to even draw one line. I was just looking at the blank frame for like 2 days. And Derek says, "Kwame, are you done with the page?" I'm like, no, I'm still working on it. Just give me some time. So it was quite a roller coaster. Some of the frames, like if some of you have seen the book, I have really focused on some of the details in the frames wherein I've shown the background and the foreground. Like say, suppose I'm standing over here and I'm talking. So if I have all 9 frames of just me talking, the person will get bored. They say, there is nothing interesting in this. So then I thought of it in a way like, I'll show an angle from here when I can see this crowd, from here when I can see this crowd, from the top angle. And from the top angle or from even the back angle, I had to show the crowd doing something, not just sitting over there. Like there is someone texting somebody in the background. There's somebody else whispering to someone. So these were small nuances that I took from different artist works, especially the late Mario Miranda, how he used to add detail. So that is something that infused in me in this book. After the page 25, that was we had to go back and redo a lot of stuff. Is because I got that kind of experience and I got that hang of, okay, this is the direction it has to go. Because I was doing the book for such a long time, off and on. So it kind of just came through, the style just came through, and we decided to go back to it and change a couple of things and add a lot of things. So, like I said, it has been quite an experience visually creating it. I feel like I'm more confident even if we plan to do something more through this book. It took 6 years. I told this one friend of mine that day, and he asked me, why 6 years, man? I wrote 3 books in 2 months, he told me. I said, how? He said, AI. He told me, AI. I just typed in the prompts and I did the thing and I took 3 books. And why you took 6 years? You can do more comics with AI. So I said, no. This is, I would not use artificial intelligence. I like to use all imagination, AI again, and I would like to stick to that. So yes, that is my take basically on that.
Sheila, can I ask you something? You obviously are a fan of comics, obviously a fan of the graphic novel. So when you got this book in your hands and then you started reading it, what's the first thing that struck you about it?
I wondered how those who did Asterix and Tintin, how did they do their homework in the days before Google? Because their detailing of Egypt or India, and I don't know where they stayed, somewhere in Europe, but I really wondered that how did they get the details? They couldn't have traveled themselves, and even if they got second-hand knowledge from someone, to be able to imagine with that much accuracy, when the first thing that came across my mind was that. And the second thing is, it did remind me, some of the things reminded me of Mad Magazine, and I loved that.
Okay, so you're a fan of Mad Magazine also. Okay. You all have discussed how the process. Okay. Now, how much of observation of human nature or, day-to-day experiences, how much of a role do they play in crafting a graphic novel?
Actually, a lot. Like, I sketch a lot. I have a sketchbook which I've maintained time and time again. So if I come up with an idea, or if I look at someone, if I come up with somebody saying something, I write it down and then I sketch it out and I keep it. It's just like a personal encyclopedia that has remained with me. So the thing is, it's more all about the eye, hand, and paper coordination of how you remember things and how you put it down. So automatically that becomes your second nature as you keep on honing your craft over time. I've been doing it for a very long time. In fact, this idea also was told to me by Sir Willie when I was in my second year in college. He used to always encourage me to keep a small booklet. You get an idea, anything, it could be the most stupidest thing also. You just write it down in a storytelling form. You keep it. Don't show it to anyone. You just keep it with you. So that has remained with me, that has stuck with me for all these years. So I guess that is the thing which has helped me with the book, that kind of reignited that thing of telling a visual story, thinking of how, if a person is reading it, how he's going to get it. Then I have to think also in terms of how to make it look funny, if the character is a funny one. So it's like everyday stories at home. It's like people say, yeah, this guy is a lonely guy, he's just sitting and looking at blank space, doing nothing. Well, no, I'm thinking of something, I'm jotting down something. It's a process. It takes time. So I feel that's the only thing. It's everyday people that you meet, everyday situations that you encounter, or even if you observe. You just have to keep an open mind, and either you take it. Of course, nowadays you have mobile phones. You can just take a shot and keep it. But before all that happened, we used to sketch it out, which I still do. It keeps my creative juices flowing all the time.
Well, I think that mobile phone is actually integral to the idea of observation. Because what happens is you look at something, the moment you take a picture of that thing or that person or situation, you lose interest in that. Then you're looking for the next thing. And I think when you draw, you actually sort of internalize, you look, it takes a process. Even if you're making a quick sketch, it takes a process of drawing and a process of looking deeply. And I think that is a different kind of looking, which when I've been working with my students at Goa University, I always tell them, please put your phones away. Please draw. I mean, even if you can't, you say, oh, I can't draw, but it doesn't matter, make stick figure, whatever. But in that process, you internalize a way of understanding. I think drawing is literally like a way of building your visual memories. It goes into your brain and it stays there. So I think that process cannot be shortcutted through phone or camera or whatever. I have one more question, may I ask? How come, I mean, maybe this is the first Goan graphic novel. I don't know, maybe it is. But whatever, I'm really curious how you guys, being Goans, living here, working here, you selected a world which has nothing to do with Goa. I mean, you set your entire story in the heartland of North India, which I'm I mean, I'm very curious about that, because what you're talking about research and so on, you would have expected, okay, you guys are working here and you're both Goan, you know this place very well, and your story would naturally be somehow to set here or something to do with here. But in fact, you've completely taken it into another world. So, I'd love to hear about why that happened and how.
So, I've been a journalist for at least 30 years, I think, here in Goa. So at the end of it, I just had enough of Goa. Reporting and editing and writing, and it was like, okay, that's enough, But more than that, I thought of the topic first, which was like something to do with this whole Gaurakshaks. Yeah. And 6 years ago or 7 years ago, it was still a very a major topic. People would talk about it. But in Goa, it wasn't such a big issue. So it was very difficult to set this kind of a story in Goa with all its problems. And the other reason I said because of the other reason why I move away from Goa is because then it puts a certain pressure on me as a writer to adhere to culture, adhere to geography, to history, and all those problems. If I'm writing about an imaginary place, then I'm free from all that, and I can just create and make. Of course, I still have to root it in some reality, but I'm free from all this other stuff. I can create my own geography. I can create my own history, which is there is some connection. There is a connection to reality, but these other problems don't come up. So I'm free that way. So whatever I write, I don't write about Goa for this reason. So I might create a place. That's another book I'm writing. An imaginary place based on Goa, but not Goa. So again, I don't have these problems. So it frees me to do whatever I want. So that's why I chose this. Of course, then the book went in different directions. But talking about the earlier question you said about its relation to reality, I never understood this. I never knew what was going on in the process as I was writing. So when it comes to names, the place Manoj Khand is named after my neighbor. A neighbor by the name of Manoj. And so that's how I started picking out names for people in the book. Yeah, because Joginder.
Don't ask.
Joginder, I hope I got his name right. I think he used to be.
Do you remember his full name?
No, he used to be a maid servant in my cousin's place in Bombay. And we got on quite well, two of us. So that name, I think, came from there, yes. Yeah. I just hope it's his name because it's so many years, but that's the name I remember. So, and I needed a short form for that name, which would be a little catchy. So Jaginder to Jag became, it just flowed very well. So that's how. So some names of places, some names of other people, like the Madka Buki, who's there, his name is Alex. Yeah. Mascarenhas is just added. But there was a man called Alex, who was the manager in the dormitory I used to live in before I got married. And he also had only one eye. He had an accident or something. So, but he was a very lovable character. So they are all coming from real life without sort of realizing things. Even the story as it flows, I realized after some time this main character sounds a little bit like me. How come this came in? Yeah, I was a dude without a plan, yeah. But, and I never realized this till I finished the book. And I looked back and I said, yeah, that's it. So that's the
character.
Yeah. Taken from real life here, there. Of course, the attributes of each character are not exactly these people. They're different. They are things that I imagine, and he drew. So to match that, I mean, that is he's genius.
He's talking about names. What about Out of Luck? And Corporal Sikhna? That's not real.
That's not really from people. Yeah. Those are imagined. Those names were imagined.
Now you've spoken about, we've seen that Jaginder is from Manoj Khand, and you've spoken about Gaur Rakshaks and so many things are there. Okay, are you thinking of getting dragged to Goa in future? Is he going to have an adventure in Goa? Is he going to go on a casino? Or, I don't know. I'm asking. I'd like to know.
Yeah, will it be a series?
A lot depends on Fabian, the freedom. So these are just wild ideas, and but sketching is at the heart of a graphic novel. So and it takes time and it takes really hard work. Though now we understand the process and we know how to simplify it and we know how to move it along a little faster. Then I also have learned how you can write in such a way that he doesn't have to sketch too much. He can use easier backgrounds and all that. So, but it's a work in progress.
Now, this one, now, when I asked you that question, I was thinking, I'm a big fan of Asterix, not so much of Tintin, but we have the Asterix series and Tintin, so and the question that I wanted to ask is this going to be the first of a series, or is this a one-off kind of a thing,
There is a possibility of more coming.
There's a possibility.
Yeah. Because you know the process.
All right. So this time you think it's going to be easier because you've already gone through this. Okay. Let's hope. Okay. Derek, just as a kind of a diversion from this, you said you're working on something else. Would you like to elaborate a bit?
Before I say anything of that, I would really like to know Sheila's thoughts on the book. Really, yes. Yeah.
Very, very refreshing to read something that was so different. Guru Girls and a Dude, and you brought up some otherwise sensitive political points without any malice or rancor, and you've kind of carried it through. So, administrator, what to do? So, notes. Page number 14. I like this little dialogue. Get him, fry him, drown him, who are we chasing? And the last guy says, I'm in it for the cardio. You're chasing somebody. I love that.
Correct.
Then one person asks a Muslim guy, how many wives do you, what about your other 4 wives, other 3 wives? That guy says, I can't manage one, you want me to have 3 more? And one of the guys, he says that, why don't you go to Mecca? So he says, how can I go to Mecca? It's so far away. He said, I thought it was Aspas.
Yeah.
So I like that very. The tea shop. I don't know if you intended it to be political, but I read it like that and I loved it. So even the bargaining, that little thing that you have, 4,000, 5,000, 3,000, 2,000. I like the way it was depicted. Then also the bad teeth. I'm armed to the teeth. That was very nice too. Yeah. And I used it with a couple of friends who are in the military, and I told them you're armed to the teeth. So anyway, I like the names Corporal, Sikhana and Out of Luck. I like the song, page number 69, We Shall Not Be Cowed Down Today. And who gave this title? I don't know. Guru Girls and a Dude Without a Plan. That is catchy. So if I were to see this title somewhere, out of curiosity, I would pick it up and see what it is about. And of course, today we came to know that this was reality, but I had already put it down, page 89. Cows. Small cows are being disguised as chickens and being transported from state to state. Did you people know that? You didn't. Now you know. Okay. It really happened. Kerala to Karnataka, I think. Cows are being disguised as chicken. Guys, be very careful what you're eating. Okay? Yeah. And then, of course, LET, MET, PET, you could have worked on it a little more. Page 105, the mobile tower being worshipped as God. And yeah, but my life is my phone, which is the truth. So, reflected in the comic.
Rico, if you can put your camera down for a moment or contribute to the discussion. You wanted to bring up something about graphic novel and Goa. You had certain questions or observations. And
just one question. everyone seems to be part of the in crowd, knowing exactly where your graphic story is going. But there would be some here who don't have a clue. So can you just refresh our mind, tell us where the story is going? And secondly, the publishing process, what were the difficulties, challenges with it? Because although I'm in that game, I know it can be quite unhelpful at times.
About the name. First, before
No,
I get
about
to
the
Rico.
story.
No, she asked.
Sorry,
She said
sorry.
something about the name. So I started out. I tend to start out with the title and then write everything. Okay. So I started out with the Mad Adventures. No, first it was when I met Fabian. I told him the title should be "I Want to Be a Gau Rakshak." And then, yeah. Then we said, okay, this I asked my wife about it. She wasn't impressed at all. So then it changed and it went to the Mad. There was a movie long time back called The Mad Adventures of Rabbi Jacob. So I said I'll call this The Mad Adventures of Gau Rakshak. And that stuck. And that went on for a long time. And then I happened to get in touch with Annie. And I said, just read the book and give me your feedback. And then he gave it to Orjit as well. And when I went to meet Orjit, he says, my suggestion is you change the name. Don't use this word because Gau Rakshak, because there are many people who will just read the title and get irritated about it or something, and they won't even read the book. So then I said, okay, we'll change it. I also wasn't too happy, but I couldn't think of an alternative. And when he said it, I said, okay, now it has to be done. So I came home and met my younger son. He's there somewhere, Rohan. He's a writer too. He writes code for computers. Yeah. And so he suggested having an alliteration. He says use 3 words, don't have a title. So we came up with Guru, Girls, Goons and Goons. Adventures of a boy without a plan or something. Still it was not okay because goons didn't fit exactly into the book. Yeah. People who are there not portrayed as goons in the book, so goons didn't make sense. So then we linked everything and said Guru Girls and a dude without a plan. And that remained, and that when I checked with several people, they really liked it. Even after the book came out, many liked the name and the combination of the name with the front cover artwork by Fabian. It sort of linked up very well. Now about publishing. So I knew I had to get a publisher, and I also knew through a lot of interaction with Rico that we had to get, we could also self-publish. So I said, how to get this publisher? So then I don't know who I spoke to. I said, no, you got to get a literary agent. So I spent about 8 months writing to everyone. Went on the net, as many as I could find. I just wrote to them, sent them copies, sent them briefs, sent them everything. And they have this one clause in, when you read about them. They said, if we don't reply to you in 1 month, it means we are not interested. So month after month it went on till I said, now this is not going to work out. I'll do it myself. And that's how I became the writer and the publisher. And I don't know what difference that really makes, but I think it does, because when I presented the book to Sheila, the first thing she did when she opened the page was, who's the publisher? I think it makes a big difference. But I really couldn't. I mean, so that is that.
And the story in brief?
Story in brief. So the story starts about a boy who wants to come to a big town to find his fame and fortune or make something. He has no real big plan, but he comes there in the restaurant, in the tea shop, and we have this first page which shows the town, and every shop in the town is named as best chapels, best tea shop, best hardware, best this and best that, because it's the best town. So, and then a little background of his parents who went down south and came how he met his mother and all that. And then he moves to town and things don't really work out according to plan. He wants to start this tea shop, but he doesn't have the money. So he meets a girl, and that girl, am I giving away too much?
No.
Okay, yeah. So he meets a girl from a village and he meets a girl, okay, yes. And and they don't know what to do, how to. So she suggests that he robs some of the grain from her father and sell it. So he sells it and bets on a India-Bangladesh match. And he doesn't know how to bet. So the odds against Bangladesh were much higher, so he just betted with them and they win. And so it goes on like that. It's basically him running into some problem of the other. Like the rest of us in life, there's always a hurdle. You feel it's going all well for a while, something goes wrong, and then you have to climb that, or you have to overcome that, until everything goes really bad. And that's when he decides to become a Gaurakshari. Yeah. And then from there on, it's adventure. Good adventure, I think. Till
Thank
the
you.
end.
Thank you.
Before we throw it open, for questions and all that, Annie there is trying his best to hide and, pretend that he's not here. Annie, can you tell us, now you've read this and you made a certain contribution. So can you say something about this book? Because you yourself are an artist who's,
For the rest of you, I started writing for comics at the age of 65, and I sent a story which I pitched to him, I think for 2-3 weeks. When I started writing, it used to take like 3 months for an editor to respond, and here within 3 hours he would say, too long, cut it short. Again I would cut it down to say 400 words, too long, make it shorter. So I had to really do a lot of hard work to chuck out many things. That is how Annie works, just to let you know.
Thank you. Against all my wishes, you have managed to get me into the picture. So yeah, it was great fun looking at this. It was kind of I won't say a first draft, but a semi-finished version that I looked at, and I was particularly struck by the complexity of the storyline. I thought that was great fun. Yeah, lots of twists and turns, and so it's a book that as you read it, you want to keep reading it because there's so much that constantly happening, and it keeps going from one thing to another, which I thought was great. And Fabian's artwork is fantastic, so that also keeps you really sort of engrossed in the story. So I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed giving. I gave him nothing much like that, but yeah, whatever little bit I had. But I in fact do have a small question to ask. So because like you, Derek, I'm also primarily a writer, and so when I'm working with comics, I'm usually working with an artist like you have with Fabian here, and so I write scripts for artists. So I wanted to ask you, I haven't seen your script for this, so I'm asking that how much visualization did you do of the stories, and did you have a lot of detail in your script as to what you wanted in the panels, or did you largely give outlines and leave it to Fabian to fill in the bits and pieces?
Before you go, tell us about Comic Sense. One word, just one.
One word.
One sentence.
Terrific.
One paragraph. one paragraph.
All right. Okay. So Arijit and I are 2 out of 3 members of the editorial team of a quarterly comics magazine called Comic Sense. It's mainly for young people in the range of 14 to 18 or so, but frankly, like with most good books, comics, whatever, can be read by anyone. I think it will be of interest to many people. I don't know if we used to have some copies here, I don't think that's anymore, but anyway, So that's Comic Sense. Okay, so Derek, about your script, please.
Before that, I'd just like to say that it took us about 6 years to make this thing, to come out with this. And during those 6 years, we met about 4 times. So, or maybe 5 times, not more than that. Because every time I would call up Fabian, I say, Fabian, we need to meet because there's something we need to discuss and all that. And he would say, no, Derek, no need to meet. You just send it by email. So I had to send everything by email to Fabian because he just didn't want to meet. It's sort of a waste of time meeting and talking about the same things and all that. Yeah, you send it, I'll do it. It was like that. And so I would have to send him corrections like, page 35, panel 6. Change dialogue from this to this. And there would be like 4 or 5 emails of all these changes. And this fellow could actually understand all that and make all those changes and actually have the patience to say, got more changes, okay, send. And any other artist would have sat me a long time back, but he went on making those changes. There had to be panel changes and all that. So he would, okay, we'll reorganize that, okay, we'll change this. Because the process was all very, very baji type, okay. But because we both didn't know anything. He knew to sketch, I knew to write, I had a story, that was it. Now about visualizing, a lot is his work. A lot of it, actually most of it is only characters we used to decide. Okay, I want the character to look like this, he has to have a beard, he has to thin, or he has to be, and he would somehow send me something. After we moved to panels, when we actually started working with panels, that's when I would visualize the panel and say, okay, the boy has to be there with so-and-so or so-and-so, and then leave it. The rest, the background, all those things is something, it's all his imagination. The forest, everything else it's pure unadulterated Fabian. Yeah. But visualizing a panel and doing all that became a little easy for me because I worked in Goa 365 where we had to think in pictures and not so much in audio. So that became a little easier. Once we were there, I think the process moved fast, except for times then for 3-4 months I would fall asleep. And for 3-4 months he would fall asleep. For another 3 months he would have a lot of other work to do because he's purely an artist. He earns his bread and butter through art. There's nothing else. So I would say I can't interfere with that. Yeah. A starving artist is of no great help. So that to answer your question.
Why you didn't want to do it?
Yeah, let's throw it over.
Why I didn't want to meet you? I could understand from the scripts as we were progressing that I could do it over there, and there was not really need unless it was really going. The story was going, somewhere out of the context. Then only we used to meet and discuss where to cut the frames and all that. The only time. There were certain times when he used to send me a lot of text. He would get into the writer's mode, and there's a lot of text. Even fit this in the panel, and I'm fitting in the panel. There's no place for even one illustration to come in there. So I sent him a screenshot. Please cut the text. I cannot do anything over here. Okay, I'll do that. So he would go back into his full thing of thinking. So there were times when I could not even draw one line in a panel. I would look at it blankly for 2-3 days, not get a single idea as to how to fill it up. So then I would go back to the first page, read it again to start thinking over things, and I would suggest things. Why don't we do this, and then send him a rough out. So basically it was like he would send me a script. I would do a rough out of the page with say 8 or 9 panels, depending on the story of that script, and then we would go back and forth to see how it looks good. Shift it to the left or shift it to the right or flip this, flip that. But most of the time we got it right in the roughs. So the roughs were sent to him, and then I would do the outline drawings, send it to him. After that was confirmed, then color the whole page. So it took time. Some panels we just had two characters talking, which was very easy. But then other panels I had to show the character in the thick of a crowd. So if he was over there, I had to draw the remaining stuff, and the panel was like this, not even a full page. It was this small, but it was important for that message to come through. So some pages took time. Sometimes I would finish 6 pages in a month. Sometimes just 2 pages. Sometimes even 1 page, because I was really just breaking my head on one panel for like so many days, not getting it right. So there was a lot. It was a trial and error. He would get fed up with me. I would get fed up with him. the emails would just come in like, oh God, again another correction. Even just change this, just change this, change this, change that. But then I used to keep a focus like, okay, this is my first comic. Let's just get it done. You know, every time it was just that one thing that was there. It is also his dream. It is also my dream. We're only 2 people working on this, and we are getting input from other people to see how the readers will react to this. So let's get it done. And sometimes let's not just do it.
Visualize full color at the start only?
No.
Like color, black.
You wanted color.
I wanted color, he wanted black and white, because we were thinking of the pricing cost. But I said it's better to keep it in color because since it's the first. And I've seen a lot of graphic novels where you just have full panels of just characters talking. There's a left, right, and there's a lot of text. I didn't want that approach. I have read the Mad comics also. I have read this comic Is No Good, which you even get over here. Is No Good is a very funny one, Asterix, Tintin. So I know that they create a lot of angles, interesting angles showing the surrounding also, which impacts that character. So I said, let's do that. Let's try it. I have never tried stuff like that. I said, let me do this. You never know, you may never get a chance again. So finally we are here with the book. It happened. It happened.
I have a question.
I wanted to know if, like, this is like a North Indian heartland setting. Were you familiar with the geography or the place? What were your visual references? How did you, get to the panels, then the art, and what were your, things, your inspiration?
Good question. Yeah.
That is in fact a very good question. In fact, the book, when we started off only, it was not familiar with anything that I had in my head. Although I worked in Bombay, I have been to Delhi, but not much. So going to the story, I said, I actually had second thoughts. I also thought, why is this guy not doing something on Goa? It was there. It was a distinct thing. I said, no, maybe it's going to be something easy. This will be something even more challenging for both of us. And it was, panel by panel. So, luckily I have friends who are, when I worked in Bombay, they were from different parts of India. So, they have been traveling. So, I have been going through all their profiles on Instagram to see where they have traveled. And I have been keeping images of it. There was somebody who had gone to Varanasi, there was somebody who had gone to this is the place where we showed the Ganesh Baba and guy having a dip. So, there were full references over there. So, I took inspiration from there, and even I asked those people on messages, like, what is the experience over there? Yeah, it was, they told me like it's very grungy, it's very this thing, but it has a kind of a holy vibe, but still it is messy. So just that description was enough for me to build up on something like that, and that's how I've never been to most of the states in North India. It just came out from looking at references on Instagram, and my friends traveling and telling me that I've been here, I've been there, I've seen this place here and there. So I just built up on that. And of course the characters that he had in mind, I could relate to. Only 1 or 2 I think I took some time to really sketch them out and then practice them. The remainder we just got them quite easily. I think because it is also a thing that I was used to the way he writes. When I was in college, I used to read his column Footloose. Right? So my mom was a big fan of his columns. So she used to say, no, the guy Derek, he writes very well. So I used to read his column often in the library. And fast forward to 2008, I get a chance to work for him for Gomantak Times. I said, no, this is the guy who writes. So I started illustrating his columns and the other journalists who were there. Fast forward 2 years, this thing he contacted me and said, let's do a comic. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I had no clue what I'm getting into. I just said, let's just do it. Just pay me something. Something. I'm not asking you anything. Just pay me the basic. Let's get it done. But we did not know we would go into so many chapters. We had actually gone up to 15 chapters, which we cut down to 13, and then we removed the whole thing of the chapters and just made it as one comic book, one full flow of things. So we had finished it about a year ago, and it took some time to reshuffle. 2 years at least to reshuffle the panels, change this, change that, to make it look. We asked a lot of people how is it going to. The thing was, but I had to read the comic every time. We just wanted it to go out there. That is, just sell the book. Just put it out. We just put it out over there. It came to that point that we just wanted it to go out. But we said like, okay, this is the final touches that has to be done. Right from small editing mistakes or anything that happens in that. So I did not believe that a team of 2 people could do this in the start. We only 2 of us. And we met only over 5 black teas. The remaining was all
Color.
Yeah, 5 black teas, and the book came out to be a colored book.
I think we didn't meet to offer. We didn't meet to offer to that place. Used to go used to serve such horrible tea. But Sweden's favorite.
Anyone? Yeah. Very simple question. What is your experience with literary agents? Have you contacted them, or what are your experience? Because you've authored books, and so I want to know that, because Derek spoke about his experiences, so that's why.
My first 3 books were self-published, and because I'm really bad at marketing, the husband says it's a very expensive visiting card. Okay, yeah. No, I haven't been through any literary agent. After my experience of self-publishing, I didn't get into it. So most of my stories have been anthologized, and other people have done the publishing, except once for the translation of Sangeet Bari. It's on Lavani dancing. That was a big fat book, and I did my best to get. I got even Adda on Commonwealth. That about 2 chapters had been uploaded on that. They had accepted it. Very difficult to get it published because people want a set of 3 books. Or something like that, which is easy to market. It's very niche. Nobody's really interested in Lavani dancing and Sangeet Bari lyrics. It's very niche. So there I did go through an agent, and my experience was, well, they're doing it for the marketing, no? So if they're not going to get buyers, they're not interested in your manuscript.
Anyone?
Arijit, when you started reading novels, or I'm not novels, comics, and I used to read comics, so one had to hide it and read it, as you rightly said. But now with his illustrated book and the attention spans, ant-like attention spans, and how we writers are, that nobody wants to read books as such, and it's such a tough time to run a bookstore. I think that you have written, that he has written an illustrated book, you think it's going to come back into fashion, and I think people will want to read illustrated stuff now more than a novel, pick up a novel. So if they had a choice, I think you should do well, very well, with the attention span of youngsters and even ours, like we are flipping channels. So here it will be very nice to see a visual book. So that's my question to you, Arijit. You feel that rage is going to come back of comics?
I had a corresponding question to Arijit. What is the scope of graphic novels in Goa because of the comic sense and there are a lot of
Yeah. So I think the way that they could reach out to and attract public, and it really worked very well. And they keep usually for a day only, but comics makers, they invite comics makers to come. They'll give them like small tables, and people can display their works, their self-published books, or even digitally printed 5 copies, whatever. And it's become very, very popular. People are like really flocking to this because, and it's encouraging more young artists to create their own comics because they feel, okay, there is a way to market this, and audiences are also really warming up to this idea. So I think we were talking about publishing just now, and I don't think that we need to depend on traditional publishers and publishing. I think the future of comics lies a little beyond that. In any case, the traditional, with context to comics and graphic novels, the traditional publishers don't really know how to deal with it, because many of them, like Penguin, HarperCollins, they publish my stuff, but they don't really know who to market it to, how to market it. For them, it's more like a prestige thing. It's like, oh, we do graphic novels, it's kind of a cool thing to do. But then they don't, so they'll put in, for 1,000, 2,000 copies, they can put that money down just to get a kind of nice image of what kind of cool publishers they are. But actually, they're still, their bread and butter comes from Chetan Bhagat and whatever, But the fact is that I think graphic novels and comics would do much better if these publishers had a sense of how to market a graphic novel and who to market it to. They don't. And I remember initially I was shocked because they said, we have a very long, this is at Penguin, we have a very long editorial process, very stringent, and we look into everything, and it's going to take, after you finish, because I was delaying, so after you finish, it'll take us 6 months to edit your book. And I was like, okay, what are they going to edit? I don't know. But I finished and I gave it to them. And it came back with obviously they can't edit the images. They don't know what to put there. So it was like, put 1 comma here, put 1 full stop there, or put an M dash here. That was the extent of their 6-month editorial process. So the fact is that people don't understand the making and publishing of comics. They can't really, they can't make a success of it. So self-publishing, or even like this kind of what I was describing about Indie Comics Fest, where comics makers are getting together to find ways to reach audiences. Maybe there will be a publisher who's dedicated to publishing comics, and now there is, in fact, what is the Silver? Indian Summer Press. They have started recently, and they're not doing big graphic novels. They're bringing out like slim, like serialized comics, and so the price is not a lot, and you get it. You have this sense, okay, this month I see this part of the story. Next month I'll get the next one. There are many things. I think it requires imagination. I think comics can and will make a comeback, but it has to be done right. And I think we're reaching that cusp. Because when I published River of Stories in '94, nobody was interested at all, right? I mean, it just sank. So I've seen that entire gamut from there to what's going on today, and I think I feel hopeful.
There is hope. We need somebody, Fabian will be in great demand. Yes. Because we need an illustrator. He doesn't want to meet comics.
I'm just going off track a bit. We did a small experiment in school. It was called DEAR, Drop Everything and Read. And we kind of convinced the children that it's very passé and it's very unfashionable to have phones now. Reading is the in thing. So we sold the idea to them that just for 1 hour in a month, we are all dears. We are all drop everything and read. And it worked. Not with everybody, but per class about 7 to 10 children have got back to books. So I do think it is the way, like Bookworm does a brilliant job. So I just think it's the way you put it across to children.
I just want to ask this question.
So, this was I was talking about comics as what's happening on the comic scene in India overall, and these indie comics fests are very heartening, and they're happening now in Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Kochi, in at least 7 or 8 cities. They happen every year, but it hasn't happened in Goa yet. But I think there was only one, but yeah, that maybe that wasn't whatever. The team that kind of put it together has they kind of fell apart. Whatever, I don't know. But one way would be for people who are invested in comics, which means comics makers, but also comics readers or comics editors or organizers, to sort of see if there can be is to start off a regular indie comics fest event here in Goa. I think that would be great. And secondly, it would be like I was saying with comics. It's wonderful to have a dedicated comics publisher. Like you see, in the States, for example, in the US, where there is a big comics culture, they have like kitchen sink press. They have a specific presses which are devoted only to comics, and we need maybe small press, at least one like that in Goa. Maybe a bookstore dedicated to comics, because comics is a kind of a subculture, and you have to create it. You have to create that subculture. There are people there, but you have to create a reason for that subculture to come together.
What about there is this publishing company called Bluff.
Yeah.
Okay, they do a lot of quirky stuff. They wouldn't be interested in I mean, like if you showed them something like this.
Yeah.
You know?
It depends. I mean, they would be. In fact, they publish my new edition of the Riverview Stories. So they do publish comics and graphic novels. And this guy, Rakesh, the publisher, he has that sensibility. He understands comics. I mean, although he publishes all kind of stuff, he has the right kind of sensibility to actually go for comics and but his sensibility also is, it's quite personal, as in to say a bigger publishing house like Penguin or something is not guided by a person's sensibility. It's like an editorial team of people and some policies and all that. He will choose something which appeals to him. You know, it's a very personal kind of a thing. But yeah, we need more people like that. We need somebody like that in Goa also.
Just to add, this is a very fascinating discussion on publishing, and I think that we have a lot to learn from it. I disagree with ma'am when she suggests that book reading is dead, people don't have attention. It's not the case. In fact, today more than any time in the past, to break into print is very easy. Okay, now selling it is another matter. Because anyone can go and reach out to a printer and print it anywhere. Now we are publishers ourselves, but I don't think that we hold solutions for everyone or even most people. If you feel that self-publishing is the way to go, I will encourage you into doing it. And I think there's no one better than the author to create a market for that. As Orijit said, we need someone dedicated to all these niche areas for graphic novels. Only someone who is dedicated to it can do a good job of it. So I'm saying, ma'am, that publishing actually has the chance to boom. Anytime in the past have we seen such a variety of books? No. And books can be published locally on subjects which are small markets, which are not considered to be markets for anyone else. You can do a 100-copy print run. So that's not a problem. The thing is how to challenge it, how to market it. And I think authors also think that we are beyond marketing, we don't have to work there. That is where the work starts. So if we find models, we can do it. So can
I add a little bit?
Please.
So many years ago, I think 10, 20 years,
some 15 years ago or so, a few of us had got together with the idea of bringing out Goan comics anthology around the same time that the Power anthology was. Soon after that, I think everyone got excited, and there was a publisher who was quite interested in doing it. So with him, which is Hornbill Press, Dilip Prabhudesai. So with him, Jose and me, we organized a sort of a session at the Central Library on comics. Just publicized it through our own channels to see what interest there was. And that session was held in the main auditorium in Central Library, which is quite big. And it was packed, like there were people sitting in the aisles and all. So there is a lot of interest for sure. And Dilip was quite interested in bringing out this thing, and a lot of conversations were happening. But then he got into Goa Forward Party and the whole thing fell apart after that. So yeah, that's that. So, but yeah, you know. So I think there is a possibility in the context of what you asked. I think there is. I'm just going by the numbers that were there. And the interesting thing is that the people who were there were both creators, like they were artists and writers who had never actually worked with comics but were obviously interested in doing it. I think Fabian, you were there, right? No? Okay, maybe you were, yeah. And in the Central Library, no. Okay, anyway, there were, but also a lot of people are just interested in comics as a medium. So there's a good market, I feel, but one has to, find the right channels to bring out the stuff. That's me.
Anyone else, or should we wind up?
I had a.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, thank you.
Just this thing. Yeah, you carry on.
Okay. So, question for Derek. When you're scripting, So, thanks. So, when you're scripting, do you decide the point of view for the characters? That is going to be first person, third person, dialogues, no dialogues. Do you put that in the script, or is that something that develops as you work with Fabian?
Mike?
You started the whole this script from you understood the question.
I wrote dialogues, yes. Okay, between so and so, so and so. When we got to panels, then yes, we had to we had the dialogue, we had the picture, we had the mood. What would be the mood of the character there? Or is it an action? Somebody hitting someone, something? Yes, everything had to be decided and passed on to him. And then he would improvise. There very often when you write a script and you decide, okay, this is how it goes forward. He sketches, and it's maybe a little off, but when it comes back, it's good. So then I used to alter the script to fit into this because it's really good. Yes, so it was a very back and forth kind of process.
So in comics, to respond to what you said, there's only two kinds of voices. There is the direct voice of the character, which is the first person, and then there is, not always, but in this case, there is a narrator. There is so that's a third person text, and that has to be visually shown in totally different ways so that the reader is not confused. So the first person thing comes with the speech bubbles and all that, and the narrative text comes in usually a box or something which is separate.
Those of you who have had your Bhatatvadas and tea, there is the books are here on sale, the creators are here, so I would invite, if everyone is Willie, do you want to say something? Do you want to ask or to say something? You are in a way also, Fabian, referred to you as a kind of a mentor figure, so yes. And you've come with a very graphic kind of a shirt, which is very nice.
Like you, Barry.
Yeah, like me.
In fact, first about Fabian, one of the most promising students whom I have taught right from the beginning. In fact, when we had gone for a tour, when we came back, we saw one nice graphic cartoon of three of the professors who had accompanied the tour. I still have it with me. I used it someday. And yes, this as I was listening to everything, this graphic novels, I think, has a future as of today, because we are somewhere in between of visuals and reading, and if we can get both together, there is nothing like it. And in fact, I just want to make a mention that way back in 1983, 84, Apurva Kulkarni must have heard of Apurva Kulkarni. Myself and another person, our classmate Shamir Dennis, now he is the editor of this. The three of us actually started working on a graphic novel then, with just a camera with us, thinking that we'll take photographs, like a photo novel. But the resources were the money was not there in the pockets. But we did work on a script with frame to frame writing and all, and we reached up to that. And thinking of it, I feel today that it was not a waste of time. We learned a lot. And today, if we have to get together again and we can do it, we can finish that. Thanks to the inspiration through this novel. Yeah. Thanks.
I just would say a special thanks to Khalil Ahmad. There he is, the quiet man behind the counter. He owns this bookstore and he keeps it open to events like this, which is really great. Without him, and I've known him for the last 30 years from the time he had his exhibitions. So big thank you to him and to Rico. Because when I first wanted to write this novel, I went to him. And if all of you know Rico, he
suffers from over-optimism.
Yeah, very true, yeah. And he passes every ounce of it to you. Yeah. So that's how it went through. Right to the end, he went on pushing here and there. And thank you to Mario, to Arijit for being here. And with Sheila, of course, she's just left. And all of you for coming here to make this very colorful and successful. Thank you.
Today's special price is?
Today's special price is 500 rupees for the book. It's available there.
Signed by both authors.
That sounded scary.
No, that's fantastic. Anyone else? Oh, yeah. So I think you guys are ready with your pens and with your sketch pens or whatever it is. All right.
Yes. Thank you.
So let's do it.
Thank
what
you.
do you say?